Welcome again, everyone. We're in a different kitchen today because the log stove is off for the summer. Summertime is here, so we're on the electric hob today. But welcome back. And we're going to take a look at some family meal ideas today. So we're going to do a cake that you can vary, and we're going to do a recipe with mince that you can vary. So that's the starting point today. So to start with, I have made a very easy cake mix. Now, this is so simple, you don't need to buy a cake ever again. You don't even need scales. Use an old-fashioned tablespoon, 6 rounded of flour, 6 rounded of brown sugar, 150 grams of softened butter, nice soft room temperature butter, a couple of teaspoons of baking powder just to give it that rise, and 3 eggs for that quantity. So if you're in old money in ounces, that's 666 and 3 eggs. So very simple. Now, I always say you want a cake mix a drop-in consistency, and actually this is pretty good, but don't make this over sloppy, because whenever you're adding fruit, there's a lot of moisture and it'll give you a wonderful moist cake without adding any more water or milk or anything else. So that's the mix ready, and we're going to add the fruit. And today I have got some beautiful rhubarb straight from the garden. So I've just got a little bit more to cut here, and then it's ready to go. It does not need pre-cooked because it's going to bake away in the cake. Now, we've done this before, I think, with apples. You could use raspberries as well. Strawberries lose their colour a bit, they're not so good. But apples and pears and plums work beautifully. Now, each of these fruit has a different sweetness. So some of them are a little bit more tart. And these rhubarb may indeed be a little bit more tart. But you know, cakes are sweet. And we have a sweet tooth in Scotland. If you were to eat a cake like this in mainland Europe, it wouldn't be oversweet. It would let the natural fruit give you the flavour. So I'm not adding any extra sugar, and it does also depend on your type of rhubarb, because some will be sweeter than others. I've tasted bright green rhubarb that looked as if it was going to be so sour and you could eat it straight raw. So, you know, it doesn't necessarily follow that if it's red, it's sweet. But if it's really a little bit too tart for you when you cook it, because that's when you'll know, then serve it with a little bit of sweetened cream, and that'll balance it up. But it's really delicious. So I've also, as I said, added a teaspoon of cinnamon to this. Cinnamon works beautifully in a cake with fruit, and it's supposed to have medicinal qualities, that it gives you calm and cool and chilled. And the rhubarb is also supposed to give you medicinal qualities. The first rhubarb came centuries ago, first in Scotland to Prestonfield, where the hotel is now. And it came from China via Russia and was really grown for medicinal purposes. And in fact, the owner of Prestonfield at the time sent some to the Pope to help him get well. We never heard whether that did the trick or not, but certainly the Pope was still alive. So maybe it was the rhubarb that did it. So into that mix goes, now I may use it all. There are recipes on my website, scottishfoodguide.scot, but it does kind of depend on the fruit you're using. You want to have sufficient that it's really speckly throughout your mixture, but obviously you need enough sponge to hold it all together. So I may not add all, but I'll add a fair chunk because I love a juicy, fruity sponge. I'm not keen on having a dry sponge. And this makes a beautiful pudding and a lovely snack as well for kids coming in from school, or just yourself having a coffee break. Now I think I'll leave about that much out of the bowl, just leave it, and the rest is in this lovely cake mix, a lovely fruity mixture. And it would be the same, as I say, if I was doing apples, plums, pears, the same idea. A little bit of baking parchment on the tray here, there we go, and pop on the mixture. Now you can make this in a lovely round, but I think you've heard me say this before, when you have a shallow cake, it cooks more quickly, and I'm always in a rush, And also you can divide it into squares, triangles, big pieces, smaller pieces, and it can sometimes be easier to portion for the family than a round cake. So unless it's specifically a birthday or something, quite often I just do an oblong in a Swiss roll tin. It cooks quickly and it's easy to slice up and divide. So I'm going to smooth it out a little bit in the tin. The rhubarb will cook while the cake cooks. It'll be about 25 minutes in an oven of about 190. And just smooth it out a little bit here. I use plain flour and add baking powder, but you can just use straight self-raising flour if that's what you have in the house. I quite like to be in control of how much raising agent I'm using. Cooks pinky. Now it's gone into the corners, so it'll settle out and find its place in the oven. And whenever you've been touching raw eggs, remember to give your hands a wash. So there we are. That is going in the oven, about 180, 190, for about 20-25 minutes. I'm just going to lift that up a little bit, like so that all the edges have got the paper around it. In it goes. Now, next thing I thought I would do is something with mince, and I've got some lovely Highland beef mince here today from a Scottish butcher. We were down in Ballantrae at the Ballantrae Food Festival, so I picked it up there, and we're going to add some more things to it to make this mince a lovely, lovely meal for us. So we're going to add some salt and pepper. With that Ayrshire theme carrying on, we've got some blackthorn salt made in Ayr from that Ayrshire water, on this amazing tower from a blackthorn's tower. In fact, that's why it's called blackthorn's sea salt. I've actually got that. There you are, that's what to look for, blackthorn. And it's the slow blackthorn produces slow berries, is very thorny. So that means you get a lot of surface area. So the water trickles through and evaporation carries on over the twigs. So you just get this faintly, slightly terroir in the salt. It's not pure white because of these lovely slow twigs giving it a real terroir. It's quite interesting. Great produce we have in Scotland. So we've got Ayrshire beef, Ayrshire salt, 5 eggs going in here, 1 egg for about that amount. Again, the recipe is on scottishfoodguide.scot, but it is kind of, suck it and see, just get on with it. So we're adding a beaten egg, in it goes. And over here in the pan, I have got cooled chopped onion. It happens to be a red onion, also left over from the Ballantrae Festival, an Ayrshire onion. And I've just softened it in some butter. And that way it's pre-cooked, because when you make, you can use the same recipe for burgers. So that's, again, very adaptable. So when you put onions through mince, sometimes you get raw bits of onions. So not only will it be lovely cooked onion, but also the butter helps bind it all together. So I'm scraping that all out and adding it to my mince. And it's cooled slightly, otherwise I can't handle the mince, and the burning onion touches the mince and that's not so good. So in it goes. Next ingredient is some of our, we've added the salt, I think, and some black pepper. Now you can see at the moment it's a little bit sloshy, and if you make pure beef meatballs, you can do lamb, you can do pork as well, works with burgers, with meatballs, then they can be a bit too dry and they can also fall apart a bit. So the eggs and the breadcrumbs and another hidden ingredient really make the difference. So here I've got our own homemade breadcrumbs. So any heels or bits and pieces we have left over are never wasted. In fact, I've got the evidence right here behind me. So here we have got some bits and bobs, the end of a French stick, the end of a sourdough. They are a total brick because they've been lying out for about a week. So then they get popped in here and you just crush them very, very easily, very quickly. And you have the most amazing, wonderful breadcrumbs that are lovely and healthy, no additives, no palm oil, and ready to go and free food. And you can see from the lovely colours when we've come across a different bit of bread in there. So I'm going to add about 3 tablespoons to my mixture here. It's very nutritious as well because it's usually multi-seed things, as you can see from our drying bowl there. And last but by no means least, to bind these ingredients is a slosh of double cream. Now, best way to do this, get the hand in. Take off the diamonds, but get the hand in. So just work it together. You might see some steam on the cooker there because we've got some potatoes boiling. Got some Maris Pipers today from Ardros Farm Shop. That's what's in the pan, and it is lovely with some mash. But of course, if you were doing this mixture for a burger, you might well want to have it with buns. Now, that's coming together. You can see it's already coming together very easily. And if I think it's a little dry, I might add another little bit more of, it's not dry actually, it's lovely. I'm going to stick with this. Just make sure you've worked in all the ingredients so there isn't a clump of onions in one place and a clump of breadcrumbs in another. But you can see how that really sticks together beautifully and it will make a lovely mix. Now I've got a tray here, very, very topical, Swedish midsummer, just around the corner. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these little meatballs and put them on the tray. And remember, the onions are already cooked. There's a little bit of butter there with the onions. And we're going to cook them in oil. Now you can use rapeseed oil, which is perfect. But you know me, I've got a little bit of dripping here, so I'm going to be using the beef dripping to cook them in. You can take them to an equally high temperature with both. And wait till you've got them all made before you put them in the pan, because that way they can all cook at the same time. Otherwise, you will cremate the first ones before you have cooked the last ones. So it's quite important to do that. To start with, when you put them in the pan, you have to let them really connect with the fat and cook a little bit underneath, because if you start moving them in the pan too quickly, they might break apart. So you've got to let them seal a little bit. Then you can keep an eye on them and roll them around. Always make sure that the middle of your meatballs and your burgers, whether they're on the cooker or the barbecue in the case of burgers, always make sure that they are thoroughly cooked in the middle. That is really important. You never should be eating pink mince, so please be aware of that. And one way you can do it is to get a thermometer. They're very widely available in ironmongers, and you can probe the probe in, and you're looking for something over 63 degrees. If you're reheating something, it should be over 82 degrees, that's centigrade. But that's fine if it's freshly made, 60, 63, 64 degrees. Now, if you can't do that, if you don't have a thermometer, then the cook just has to half a meatball and check they're brown right through. And that's the best way of doing it, to just double check. But they don't take very long. And if I'm doing it for a large family, then what I do is I don't overfill the pan, but I pop them in the oven when there's a batch ready, and they'll continue certainly cooking a little bit while I do the second batch in the pan. I usually use the wok that you see behind me because then they can roll around very freely. Now I've only got 2 left to do, so I'm just going to do them so that you see the whole tray here. And as I say, the mix works beautifully for burgers as well. And there is the last one. In Sweden, they often eat the meatballs cold as well on sandwiches for breakfast, lunch, any time of the day or night. They will eat cold meatballs as well. Wash your hands thoroughly because you've been handling raw eggs and raw meat and raw everything else. And then these are ready. Now, this is my dripping ready for the pan here. And put the pan on nice and high. And melt some of this dripping. or you can use some lovely rapeseed oil as well. So that's the quantity I got from about 150 grams of, about 150 grams, 120, 150 grams of mince in the packet, and they're ready to go, and that will definitely serve two easily. So we're going to pop them in the pan. We also, behind me here, have got some potatoes cooking away, so we'll just see how they're doing. And they are softening nicely, so we'll just give them another few minutes. I'm going to serve them mashed. And the other thing that we have going on here in the other pan, I'm going to use, not dripping, but a little bit of Summer Harvest rapeseed oil in the pan, like so. And a little bit of butter as well. A little bit of butter, there it goes. Put that in on it as well. And in the recipe on the website, scottishfoodguide.scot, you will see that there is called cannon, which is putting cooked cabbage through your potato, which is delicious with this. But today I happen to, again from Ballantrae, have some beautiful baby turnips. And I thought, well, let's have them instead. They'll be absolutely delicious. So they've been washed. They do not need peel, these little baby turnips. So I'm just topping and tailing them. And I'm going to saute them in that little oil butter combo with some black pepper and salt. And they will make a delicious accompaniment this time for our meatballs. So I'm just going to take the top, take the tail, quarter them so they'll all cook evenly, and they will be really delicious. Now what we'll do now is, I can hear that sizzling away in the background. These are not the same as Swedes. These baby turnips don't like the frost. So what we call tumshies or neeps are the orange ones, and they can survive in the frosts in Scotland. These are a little bit more delicate, but they are delicious. But they're not the same as the rhubarb or Swede or neeps that we have at Burns Night. I'm just cutting them so they're all sort of evenly sized. Some of them need quartered, some of them just need halved. And they can just saute away whilst the meatballs are doing their stuff. So here we are. There you go. So we've got lovely hot oil here. We're going to add in our meatballs. Get them sizzling away in the pan. There we are. Give them a quick little coating of the fat and then let them settle. So I'm going to leave them on the cooker just to settle a little bit before I then start turning them. So keep an eye on them. And this is quite handy for turning them over, but you can just sugar them in the pan. One way is a little bit more methodical and the other way works as well. Two more little turnips here. There we are. Some blackthorn salt. Some pepper. And there we have it. So, potatoes on the cooker, meatballs sizzling away, take about 10-15 minutes, and the same for the turnips because they're a little bit crisp, but you want them to have a nice texture inside, you don't want them to be too soft. So all in all, with the cake in the oven, you have got an entire meal in real time and a very economical, delicious meal. So come back and see me in 15 minutes and we'll see how it's all going. And we're back. And I tell you, the smells in this kitchen are driving me mad. So we've got the potatoes cooked and drained. So I'm going to add a generous knob of butter. You can add a little bit of cream if you like. You can add some chives if you like. And just give them a nice mash here. There's enough for two. There was 3 medium potatoes here. One of them was a little bit on the large side, so that was heaps for the two of us. And that's already done. And while the food was cooking, I did almost every dish. So the dishes are almost done as well. So it doesn't have to be a labour just to make some lovely food. So a spoonful of potato in readiness for the meatballs. Here we go. Put this behind me. In the bowl here, I've got the little turnips, the baby turnips, with a little bit of what they call brown butter, just letting it really roast, and they're delicious. I tasted one, they're fantastic. So a little bit of black pepper on the top of them, and that's ready to go. Now let's check out the cake. So when you're testing the cake, you want to ensure that it's cooked right through in the middle. Here it is. A lovely even golden colour, slightly shrunk from the edges, which is exactly what you want as well. And you want a nice clean skewer and pop it in the middle, and it should come up nice and clean. If it's got any cake mix on it, put it back in. The middle will be the last bit to cook. So that's ready to go. Now I need that cloth again. What I'm going to do is I've got a nice clean chopping board here, and this will just slip straight out onto the chopping board. Easy. And then you can leave it there. You can actually freeze it if you want to. So you can take half, put it away and freeze it for having another time if you like. And I'm just going to cut some nice little portions, put some on a plate. And you'll see how delicious this is. Still very hot. It's a lovely dessert, or lovely cold. I'll just take a piece of this, pop it on the plate, and we will definitely be having that with a little bit of whipped cream. And the fruit makes it lovely and moist. There we go, you can see that steaming. And as I say, all in real time. We had a 15-minute pause, and that's it, ready and cooked. And you see that delicious sponge. So that's cinnamon and rhubarb. Really delicious. And last but not least, those meatballs. So they've been sugaring away here. They are lovely roasted. They're cooked right through. And I'm going to put some of them with a spoon, which I have just gone and here we are. Put some with the potato. Halve them between two people. And you can serve these, they are nice with a sauce. So you can either swirl a little bit of double cream in your pan to pick up all these lovely juices and serve it with that. Or what you can do is you can have it with a little bit of cranberry sauce or round jelly. That's another alternative, which is rather nice. What we've got here is something called aronia jelly that I made last summer. I hadn't tried it before, but we had a huge bush, almost tree of it in the garden. So I thought, well, better try it out and see what it's like. And it's really delicious. Now in Sweden, they would have that with lingonberry sauce, which you can buy easily from a certain flat pack shop. But this is a very, very good alternative as well. I haven't seen it commercially available, but I'm sure maybe somebody makes it, but it's very easy to make yourself. And I'm going to serve it with some of this aronia, and it will be really, really delicious. So I know what we're having today. What are you having? The recipes are on the website, but if you enjoy the recipes and you would like more of my recipes, on the 21st of June, our book will be out. It's called Meadows, the Swedish Farmer and the Scottish Cook. So do keep checking out for new places to eat and producers on scottishfoodguide.scot, and do look out for our cookbook, which will be available soon online from my Wendy Barry site, but also it will be stocked in about a week's time in Achentulloch Farm Shop over in Loch Lomond, and Erichel near Aberfeldy, and Hardy's Mill in Berwickshire. So check it out or buy it online and it'll be posted to you. Thank you.